Hi, and welcome to What's Up Williston, the town's monthly TV show where we take a close look at things going on in our community. I'm your host, Erik Wells. I'm pleased to be joined this month by my first guest, Christine Johnson. She's the Executive Director of the Chittenden County Opioid Alliance. Christine, thanks so much for coming on.
You bet.
So, a lot to cover today. I thought we could get started by talking about the Chittenden County Opioid Alliance. How did it come together? What approaches does it use to assist community members who are dealing with substance use disorder in our region?
Great, thanks. So the Chittenden County Opioid Alliance was created in 2016, and it was the brainchild of then CEO of the United Way, Martha Maxim, and Dr. Harry Chen when he was the commissioner of the health department. And really it was in response to this crisis that we were having around the opioid overdose deaths in Vermont, and we're also seeing it nationally as well. And so what we've been implementing over the last three, and now into our fourth year, is a collective impact model. And what the model aims to do is to really identify who are the partners, who are the right people to have at the table to address an epidemic such as this. And we do that through a framework that includes communication across the county. We do it through tracking data and really understanding what the trends are, what the gaps are in our systems. We do it through shared measurement and really having a common agenda so that all of the partners are working in the same direction, that we're not kind of, constantly tripping over each other with the work that we're doing, but that we're really operating and really facilitating the work that we're doing, but in the same direction, and making sure that we're addressing all of the needs that are that persist with an opioid crisis such as ours.
That's a really interesting model to look at. How did that approach, how was that selected for the method to use here? And
that's a really good question. It came out of a group back, I think, in 2012 through Stanford Social Innovation. There was an article that was written about how a lot of models that are utilized to address community issues, you really have to make sure you have the parts to get it right, and make sure that you have, like I said, people moving in the right direction, that you're working in the same direction. And one of the things that this model offers that I think a lot of other models don't is having a backbone organization. So the Chittenden County Opioid Alliance is that background organization that can convene and facilitate the partners and all of the moving pieces, and really focus our full-time work specifically on the opioid epidemic.
Yeah, just kind of branching off that, if you could explain for everyone kind of what your role looks like as executive director, kind of keeping all those pieces moving and a lot of partners to work with.
Right, so the bulk of my work is really facilitating and convening the partners. We have 3 action teams, and we can talk about those in a few minutes. And we're really looking to address the needs across the county. And so making sure that we are being responsive to the entire county, and really thinking about how we can use our capacity to help other towns and cities, as well as other partners, to really think about how they want to address the issue of opioids as well. So we also focus on keeping up the intensity on issues that include adequate funding for a prevention system, which is badly needed. We really want to work hard to address stigma that opioids often brings up in people in terms of their opinions about what causes somebody to be addicted to opioids. So we really want to help get messages out about that and make sure that we're training and educating people on the brain science of addiction and really what does that look like. We also want to make sure that we're including people with lived experience, because we know that if we try to do this without people who've really lived this in their own lives, if we do this work without people with lived experience, we frankly miss the boat. We're not going to get to where we need to get unless we have people who can really help us to understand what it's like to be in their shoes, and also what's needed as a result of having an opioid addiction.
You mentioned the action team model. I believe there's 4 action teams that are put together.
Well, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. So we have Community Stat is co-chaired with our Burlington Chief Brandon Del Pozo and our AHS Field Director Jane Helmstetter. And that is really a high-level systems group that gets together and really addresses the issues from kind of that 10,000-foot view, and how do we change systems, how do we change policies. And that's an incredible group of people that have a huge investment in thinking about how all of these moving parts work together. Wow. And when there are gaps, really going after how do we fix those gaps. The other 3 action teams that we have are the Prevention Action Team, which is really focused on creating the partnerships and identifying, how do we get messages out about prevention, how do we support communities in doing that prevention level work. And we also have a treatment access and recovery supports action team, and that, as the name implies, that group is really looking at how do people get access to treatment? Are there adequate recovery supports for people? What does that look like? What are the barriers, such as housing, transportation, childcare, employment? What are the types of things that somebody in recovery or wanting to be in recovery, what are the things that they need, that we need as a system to have really flourishing in order to be able to support somebody in their recovery, as well as having the doors that are open for people to access treatment. And then the third action team is the working recovery. And that action team is focused right now on creating a toolkit for employers that is going to look at how to hire and onboard as well as retain people with substance use disorders, such as an opioid use disorder. And hearing the news yesterday that our unemployment rate just dropped to 2.5%, and that we're losing people in terms of our number of our workforce capacity. Now is an excellent time to be thinking about. We know that people with substance use disorders are working, and we know that they get excellent benefit from having employment. And so, how do we help support employers in hiring and retaining people? How do they understand what might be going on and what the needs of an employee who needs to access treatment, for example? What does that look like for them? And how can we support them with a toolkit that is literally a resource guide of how they help navigate somebody with a substance use disorder or in recovery?
And that really, I'm thinking that goes back to a lot of removing the stigma piece that you spoke about earlier.
Yes, it absolutely does. I mean, so much of the work is in our own families, at our own tables professionally, but also in the workforce around the brain science that we talk about. That when people really understand that an addiction is a disease like cancer, like diabetes, and there are ways that we need to treat it, and there are ways that we need to address that stigma to open up the doors to treatment for people who just have felt so shamed and so stigmatized by a system that really feels like they are a moral failure of some sort. And nothing could be further from the truth, that people are really in need of treatment, they're in need of services, and they're in need of support. And that's what the Chittenden County Opioid Alliance has built and really is designed around having the conversations and the capacity to shepherd that type of work.
Let's see, did we address all 4 action teams?
Yes, because we started with CompStat.
Okay, yeah,
yes,
that's right. I want to make sure you got them all.
Right, yes.
So next, Christine, I wonder if you could speak on what we're seeing in our region concerning opioids and what the latest data is telling us.
Well, there's some really exciting news to share. As of the end of 2018, the number of fatal overdose deaths from opioids has reduced by 50%.
Wow.
And that's a huge piece of information. I think that we have a lot of work to do to unpack why that happened. But when we look across the county and think of all the work that's being done with increasing treatment capacity and making buprenorphine more accessible to people at the emergency department and at Safe Recovery, which is our safe needle exchange in the community, when we look at the peer recovery coaches that we now have in the emergency department, these types of programs are really helping to expand access to people, hopefully reduce the shame and the stigma, and let people know that when you want help, there is no wait list. There's no wait list at the hub, the Chittenden Clinic up on San Remo Drive. There used to be one that was several months long with maybe a couple hundred people waiting to get in the door. That is now 0. So when we think about the data, 50% decrease is huge for Chittenden County. We also have a reduction by 68% in the prescription of the prescribing of opioids in Chittenden County. And that, again, is huge. So we have doctors who are really, I think, getting up to speed and really understanding the role that they're playing. We're also in conversation with dentists about what role they play as well, and thinking about how do we get prescription drugs out of people's cabinets that don't necessarily need them. And who among us has not gone to the emergency department and come home with a handful of opioids. I was really encouraged. Back in October, I broke my ankle and ended up in the ER, and there was no talk of opioids. They were not offered, and I was in excruciating pain, and even said I was in excruciating pain, and they said, go home and take ibuprofen. That was a huge moment, because I've been to the ER other times in the past, and it's a very different conversation, I think, that we're having now.
That's quite the shift in just a short period of time I'm seeing here.
It is a shift, and at the same time, we know that there are people who have a very realistic need for opioid prescriptions. And so there is a balance, right? We have to figure out what that exactly looks like. But I think that reducing by 68% the amount of prescriptions, that's a huge, I think that's a huge message. And I think we're really starting to understand as a culture and a community what the impacts of these prescriptions have been. And then also how do we use them in a way that's conducive to what the need really is.
We talked about the action team approach, and what are some various outcomes this approach has produced? We kind of see the end statistics we just spoke about. What maybe some other outcomes that don't always come up in statistics that we see out there?
Well, I do think that one of the outcomes that we've had recently is the prevention action team was able to look at the youth risk behavior survey and see that the outcomes for young people that identify as LGBTQ, they're really awful. They're horrible outcomes, whether it's increased rates of suicide, tobacco use, drug use. It was really striking to the team. And so as a result, the team said, let's think about having a training. And we did that back in February. We had 90 people show up. Wow. And so clearly the need was there. And this training was aimed at both youth serving and adult serving organizations, but thinking about how do organizations really assess. We had an assessment tool, and how do they assess what they're doing as an organization to change outcomes for this population. And so clearly there's an interest there, but again, using the data to really inform what is it we need to be working on, and they took that very seriously and were able to make that available to partners. So I think that's a really encouraging outcome. And then I mentioned the access to buprenorphine and the peer recovery coaches in the emergency department. These are some really tangible outcomes that is starting to shift what it is we're doing in the community to serve this population. And I think the 50% reduction in overdose deaths likely speaks to a lot of this work that's going on.
Gone into it. Oh,
yeah.
That's great. I'm just thinking, that's such a reduction, and a lot of people playing a role in this. It sounds like.
And that's really the key to collective impact, is that everybody who touches this has to have a seat at the table, right? It's not one organization can't do it. The Howard Center can't do it alone. The CCOA can't do it alone. So it really is incumbent upon everyone who's connected in any way to come to the table and to think, what is their own role in solving this crisis, and then how do we work systemically to address it as well.
Well, next, Christine, I want to shift gears just a tiny bit and talk about an event we've been working on as a planning group coming up in Williston in April. It's a substance use and prevention forum. We're calling a community conversation. It's going to take place Wednesday, April the 10th at Williston Central School. We'll have a free meal starting at 6 o'clock, and the program will be from 6:30 to 8:30. It's a free event to attend. We'll have more information you're seeing on the screen now. And also, if you go on the town website, we have information about how to RSVP. We're just trying to get a good head count before we get to the evening to help us plan. But Christine, I wonder if you could share with viewers kind of what to expect for this evening of the event.
Sure. I think this is going to be a great event for the community to really come together and identify what is needed in Williston. And I think that's a critical conversation for any community to have. So at this event, we will share the data, some of the data, the highlights, some more of what we've just talked about. We'll have a guest speaker who is coming with her own lived experience, and she will share with the group some of her journey, but also what would have been helpful to her in terms of prevention and helping the community to think through, what are we missing as a community? Are we missing things? And if we are, what can be done as a result of that? And we'll also have a chance to look at some videos and think through the brain science and really get some of that factual basis that helps people to really understand what is addiction, whether it's tobacco, whether it's opioids, whether it's marijuana. What does that look like what is the science behind it, and how does that then inform the conversations that we have with each other as a community?
Mm-hmm. And we're really looking to have a lot of active voices from everyone in our community. We're focusing on youth prevention, and just trying to have this as a first step conversation in our community. If someone was thinking like, oh, should I go or shouldn't I go, what would your message be to someone of why it's a good idea to attend?
I think it's going to be a valuable use of someone's time because, the opioid epidemic has hit all of us at some level. And if you back that up to a prevention framework, we know there's more that we need to do around prevention. And we also know that prevention works to stem the tide of any type of addiction. And so this is an opportunity for people to have a real voice in that and to really think about, if you're a parent, to come because you want your children to have a community that is very resilient and helps their children to become resilient. And we also, we want businesses to be there. Businesses play a role. The police department plays a role. The nonprofits in your community as well. Getting back to what we do at the CCOA, it's having every sector at the table because everybody has to bring something, and what they bring is their perspective and their vantage point. And so the more you have people in the room that have those different vantage points, I think the better the community of Williston can then respond by having that collective body of people in the room to really address the issue.
And something we've looked at is this model the country of Iceland has used successful over time. Didn't know if you could touch on that briefly.
I sure can. As a matter of fact, there was a team that just got back last week from going to Iceland, and there will be other events that will be held locally to address that, to speak more to the Iceland model. But really what they did is, one, they started to pay attention. Two, they got data in real time. So where we have a survey that is kind of a year's lag time, they have data that they're producing in real time and able to really get their hands on what's happening right now, not what happened a year ago, but what's happening right now. And then they really created programs and services for young people to really keep them busy in that really difficult time between like 3 and 6 o'clock at night that we know is a tough time, and that's when kids get into a lot of trouble, and potentially that's when they're trying substances for the first time. So Iceland was able to really hone in on how do we keep our kids busy, and what kind of programming do we offer them. They did it. They had a precipitous drop in their rates of addiction, and it's quite impressive if you look at the data. But I think that model holds a lot of hope for something that a community like Williston could really look more into and think about, is that a good fit for us, and is that something that we can borrow from? There's no such thing as a new idea, and that's a great model that's showing success not in Iceland, but in a variety of countries around the world as well.
Well, I just want to remind folks, April 10th, this community forum is going to be happening at Williston Central School. Really encourage everyone to come out and attend that evening. Looking for more information, check it out on the town website, stop by the town offices so you can meet with the town manager, Rick McGuire. We're very excited to start this community conversation. It's just a first step in this community journey that we're talking about here today. So I think it's going to wrap up our time today, Christine, but thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Great talking with you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks. My next guest this month is Todd Goodwin. He's the Director of Recreation and Parks here in Williston. Hey, Todd.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I think winter's wrapping up. We were just talking about how it's going to be spring-like temperatures later this week, and thinking about that, people coming out more to enjoy our parks, and I know you've been busy coming up with our programming for recreation coming up in the spring and summer.
Yeah,
I wonder if we could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. The spring summer guide, which is here, came out in February 14th, and it has all of our programs for this spring and in camps and programs for the summertime. And we're serving 50 and above as one category, 18 and older as another, 16 and older. Youth from preschool on upwards. There's after school programs, and there's a whole mess of summer camps, in this guide, sort of a thing. So.
What are some different activities there to give folks an idea?
New activities that we've added have been for that 50 plus. We're trying this brain fitness, which is an opportunity for the senior population to come and use their brain muscle rather than their physical muscles and stuff like that. There's a socialization piece, lunch piece with that, and then the program. And then also we're trying to do some trips for them. We have a trip here in March, towards the end of March, at the Shelburne Craft School, where they learn to go and craft, and there will also be a lunch as part of that at the Dutch Windmill in Shelburne as well. So, and we're going to plan. We're in the process of planning right now an April trip and a May trip for that senior. So we're trying to bring in some new senior programs. We always work with a lot of different companies and businesses within Williston to offer programs, Rehab Gym, Onata Studios, and such like that. And they always have a lot of new programs that they offer as well, that we offer registration for them, and they do at their sites, and it's a good collaboration.
Yeah, just looking through the guide this week, a number of different things for anyone of any age in town to take advantage of. And
definitely,
if someone wants to learn more, this is available around town, the website.
Yeah, this came out in the Observer. So we do 2 program guides a year. One comes out mid-February in the Observer. One comes out mid-August, which is fall-winter programming in the Observer. So this was part of the Observer paper on February 14th. And right now, if they missed that, these are available at the schools, at the library, and at the rec department, and at the town hall building. So they can pick one up. And they can always, all of our programs are on our website, the willistonrec.org website. And any new programs that didn't make this, get onto that website as well.
Okay, perfect. If, some of these programs, do they fill up ahead of time? We encourage pre-registration for most.
We encourage pre-registration for all of them. And what we do is we look at a week before the start of the program as to what the numbers are, and we share those numbers with the instructors, and the instructors make the decision whether they can offer the program or not. So they set their minimum, and we try to reach that. And if we met the minimum, the program's a go. If we're close to the minimum, the instructor has an opportunity to say yes or no, whether they want to. But we are looking at those numbers a week out. And if people are waiting for the day before to register, we may have already canceled that program. And we only may need 1 or 2 more to make that a program a go. And it's sad to cancel, but we got to give that notification to the instructor. It's worth their time. They got to start planning for however many they get and that kind of stuff. We do keep registration open, typically to the day before a program, but that's if we've met that minimum, which we got to do that week prior to. So early registration is highly encouraged.
Yeah, it sounds like if you see something you're interested in, sign right up for it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't wait, because as we say there, and it's probably in the guide, register now because a program may be canceled if you wait too long. So.
Kind of swinging gears just a little bit, we're talking about springtime, but summer's right around the corner too. And I know school's wrapping up here.
Yep.
Once they get through the snow days we had this year, but wrapping up in mid-June or so. And I know families are thinking about summer camps, and summer camp registration is open as well.
That is open, yeah. As soon as this guide went out, the summer camps are in this guide and registration opens. We usually have like 3 cycles that early families that are planning and making early plans and whatever else, so they're looking for this guide to come out. Usually around that April time frame of the April school break. Parents are starting to wonder what they're going to do with their children in the summertime. And then there's that June, at the end of school. I haven't got anything planned yet for my child, what is left over and what's out there type of a thing. We have this wonderful grid on our website that people can go, and what the grid says is, the dates that we're offering camps, and there's a 9-week period, and the first starting June 17th, that week of, we have some sports camps, some specialty camps, enrichment and technology camps. Our day camps start the week following, but this is a perfect grid because it shows what we're offering that week, so parents can really go through and plan out their child's whole summer with, Williston Recreation Parks. If it's doing a specialty camp, sports camp, or one of our day camps type of thing. So,
what are the hours typically for a day camp?
If the day camp, we run 2 day camps. One is at Allenbrook, which is called Rec Camp, and there's 2 groups. and their day is 7:30 to 5:30, and typically drop off 7:30 to 8:30, program 8:30 to 4:30, and then pick up 4:30 to 5:30. Our other camp is at Williston Central School, and that's the teen camp. I should go back and say that rec camp is for those who have completed kindergarten through second grade and completed third and fourth grade.
Okay.
There's two different groups there. There's one group at Williston Central School, which is completed 5th through 8th, and that'll be with the grade that they're completing this spring. And the time frame at Williston Central is 8 to 5, would drop off between 8 and 8:30, program 8:30 to 4:30, and then pick up between that 8 and 5. We also offer a lot of different camps at Williston Central School for the sports, specialty, and technology. And what we usually say is that there's the morning camp is 8:30 to 12, afternoon camp is 1 to 4:30. Parents can also buy 8 to 8:30 and 4:30 to 5 to make it a full day. And if they do a sports or specialty camp in the morning and do one in the afternoon, they get the hour in between free. We'll pick up their child, have lunch with them, and then get them to their afternoon camp. So they could do some type of what we call specialty camp, which is sports enrichment technology, and they could do 2 of those, and a parent could be set for 8 to 5 with a child. So we try to really accommodate that working parent as much as we can.
Yeah, there's just a really way to build a different interest for kids during the summer, it sounds like.
Yeah,
and work with people.
There's a lot of variety to speak that, to spark their interest and stuff like that. And we encourage parents, if your child is doing a day camp all summer long, it may be good to break that up with a couple sports technology type of other different types of camps, just to break up their summertime. Yeah.
I imagine like the rec program we were talking about, early registration is a good idea for summer camps because
definitely.
You guys have a certain number of kids you can have. Right?
Yep, instructors have minimums and maximums as well, and beginning of June timeframe, we'll look at all the camps and we'll give the instructors their minimum numbers at that point in time, and they may decide to cancel a camp because they haven't reached that. So it's important that if people want to register for a camp, not to wait, because we're going to look at the camps in that beginning of June time frame, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to do that week like before like we do with the programs, because it's hard to get kids into another camp, or a day camp may be filled. You can't get into it if we cancel it. So if we're canceling camps, we're looking to do that by June 4th. If an instructor decides to go on, we'll leave registration open and take more, but they do have maximum, and there are some camps that are very popular that people like to, the kids really enjoy, that instructors have been successful and they do fill fast. So it's important to register early. Anything that we do, register early.
Thanks a lot, Todd. Thanks for all you do. I'm just envisioning all these different spreadsheets and tracking and keeping all this organized. There's a lot that you guys do.
We have a great system through our online registration, and that's why that's why we say everyone needs to register online. And some people don't have all the access. We can help them in the office with that, but it's definitely registering online gives us our list, and I'm not having to reduplicate things because it's a one-stop shop, and it's a great thing. So definitely checking out our website, willistonrec.org is a great place to find everything that we're offering and what we're up to.
Thanks a lot, Todd.
Yeah, you're
welcome. A lot going on.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you want to hang out for a second, we're just going to wrap up this month with our usual community notebook segment. We'll look at a few things going on around town here. So let's hop on. So reminder to everybody, dog licenses are now available. April 1st is the deadline to register your dog. Stop by the town clerk's office. Make sure you bring your active rabies certificate. And a couple reminders, too, we were talking about this week in the office. As the weather's getting nicer, we do have a town pet ordinance. Want to make sure dogs are leashed at all times in our public spaces and clean up after them, their waste. Want to protect our waterways, protect our public spaces. We'll have more information out about that, but please be mindful and a good dog owner. And coming up is the annual Fire Department Pancake Breakfast. It's going to be Sunday, April the 14th at the fire station from 8 in the morning to noon. On the screen, you see we've got partner has suggested donations: $8 for adults, $6 for seniors, kids 2 to 12, $5, and kids under 2 eat free. Opportunity to meet our emergency responders. Kids can check out the apparatus and the fire trucks, adults too, and just see our great facility and meet our great team over there. In the Old Brick Church concert series, its next concert is Friday, April 26th, featuring Patty Larkin. You can purchase tickets on the town website ahead of time or stop by the town clerk's office. That'll be at the Old Brick Church in the Williston Village. As a reminder, Williston is social. We're on Twitter. Follow us at Town Williston VT or like us on Facebook. We've seen our following grow quite a bit the last 6 months. So we'll continue to be making regular posts there and sharing information with our community. And as always, if you have feedback or segment ideas for this show, please reach out to me. Email address and number on the screen. Be happy to talk with you. Stop by the office as well. Always looking for ideas for the show we do each month. So that's going to wrap it up this month on What's Up Williston. I want to thank Christine Johnson for being on earlier and Todd Goodwin for joining me this month. I'm Erik Wells, and I'll see you around town. Take care.